Hello, this is Deborah Anderson, the BlkWmnAnimator, coming back to you with another video. And in this video, I have René Holder. Welcome. Can you please give a little introduction of yourself?
Sure, I am happy to be here. My name is René Holder. I am from Trinidad and Tobago, and I am from an animation studio, from an animation studio called Farr Creative. So I am the animation producer there. We actually have two offices, one in Trinidad and actually another one in Estonia, Europe, which I know sounds weird that we have a studio in Europe, but I probably could get into that a little later.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some people that we worked with before. We've done a lot of external videos, a lot of music videos. We've worked with like Destra Garcia. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you know Destra. She's a big soca artist.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple other music videos as well. And we're only now getting into like IP development. And we're currently in production of our first animated series, which is How's That, which is based on cricket, the sport of cricket.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of cool.
Nice. So, okay. What was your relationship with art and animation in your childhood?
Starting off with the hard questions.
You lived it, so it's kind of easy.
I don't know. Like I've always really been involved in like I really liked animation and comics,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess when growing up, I always kind of believed that I needed to leave Trinidad to
Mm-hmm.
pursue it because I mean there wasn't a lot of animation and comics or anything like that, or at least an industry to speak of when I was growing up, and so in doing that, I kind of was always working towards the goal of, all right, cool, I'll do my SATs, I'll get into school, and I'll go to the US and probably learn to be an animator or something along those lines. And I don't know, growing up and doing that, there was a couple of guys who were a little older than me. They actually started a a collective, I guess, to of some extent, where they published like stories about folklore and did comics, and they actually released it in our local newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of revolutionary at the time, and it was called the Box magazine, and they had like stories about like Sacunias, and which is like I guess a Caribbean Creole version of like a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they did like a bunch of Caribbean futuristic stuff, and it kind of opened my eyes. And this was when I was around 14, 15, and I was like, shit, or like if they can do this here, then maybe I don't need to leave.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of opened my mind. So I kind of changed my way of thinking and how to approach my own self and my own journey. And years later, I kind of just self-taught myself and learned and started to do graphic design and mostly became like a freelance graphic designer and worked in
Mm-hmm.
that design field. And years later, they actually launched animation program at the local university here, which was about I would say 10 years ago. So maybe I would have been about 23, 24.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they started a two year degree program, and it was the first year we were the guinea pigs. Uh, they were now like
Nice.
working out the kinks and everything, and funny enough, like I always kept those guys who started Vox because it only ran for like a year or two in the magazine. I kind of always followed these guys, and then when I ended up in university, I actually met one of them. He was on another program, and I met one of them, and I was like, "You guys like," I was like a fanboy, like I've never met you, but you guys like changed my life, and this is the reason why I'm doing this, and because of this, da 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 da. And they were like, cool, 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 cool. But I mean, they're actually
Did
like,
they not realize their impact?
I don't think so, and like I even up to now, like we're all good friends now, but like I don't think they fully understand the impact they probably had on me and maybe other people in my generation to really like reconsider like what uh, local content can be, what how to look at these Americanized or Japanese anime or stories and that kind of thing and recontextualize it in a Caribbean setting and how we can adapt and create these things. And so like that started my journey. And after I graduated from the program, I should say actually I didn't graduate because there was one class I didn't pass, and
what
they
class
were like
was that?
math. We had to do math class. I'm horrible at math, horrible. But yet I run a company, which says something. But that's a whole other thing. But yeah, and so after that, one of my classmates and I decided, because we worked in advertising before, and because there wasn't much of an industry for animation, a lot of our direction was heading back into advertising. Even though we learned all these things like storytelling and creating content, all those things, there wasn't much of an avenue to do that in advertising, especially we came from it before. So we were like, you know what, screw this. We're going to start our own studio.
Yeah.
And that was the birth of our first company, which was Lab 206. And the reason why we called it Lab 206 was because there was actually a lab at the UTT program, which is a university. It was like a computer lab that had nothing. I remember we had like an audio class that the computers didn't have sound cards. Yeah, amongst other things. But so we were like, you know what? It's funny to us that we should call our company this, because like we're kind of we claiming back the name and making it something cool and making it something new.
It was like an inside joke.
Yeah. So and we did that for about 8 years. And once I did that for 8 years, we kind of started the company and we grew it. We actually got more people, got more staff. We pitched, we developed 2 other IPs, but those didn't go anywhere. Mainly because I guess it was all learning. It was all a learning process. You know, I don't know if you've ever developed IP, but it's kind of like you're in love with something, you develop it, and then when you take it to market, the market is like, not really interested.
Yeah.
So we were like, you know what, let's try this again. And we've done it like twice before. But I mean, the Caribbean is new to this kind of content, and especially like, which would have been 6-7 years ago. You know, it was all a new frontier. So whatever we were doing it all for the first time. So we were all trying things out. And I say this all to say like things have changed all that much, but they haven't. But we are smarter for it, and we are better equipped for it because we know what not to do now. With our new project, leads me to why we started a company in Europe. But yeah.
Let's get into, Farr Creative and like how you like starting it, getting another studio in Estonia, like how.
Okay. So after we finished Lab 206, to be honest with you, I kind of got a little burnt out. Because we've been doing this animation. We've been trying to build an animation studio for what have been 6 years at that point in time. And I started to get honestly a little burnt out, and I felt like I needed to take a break because we were doing work and the studio was known, at least in Trinidad and I don't know, further out for the Caribbean. But the thing is that we started to do stuff primarily for keeping the lights on, as opposed to which was our core focus, which was we wanted to create Caribbean IP. We wanted to create Caribbean content. We wanted to create content for kids. We wanted to create the stuff that we were excited about. But we were just creating stuff to keep the lights on, to pay the bills. And it was kind of burning. I felt kind of burnt out about it. So I decided to take a step back from the company and kind of refocus myself. And so I became a creative director at a digital agency. We did like social media and that kind of stuff. I worked with a lot of big brands in the Caribbean because we actually had the agency actually had offices in Jamaica and Guyana. So
Mhm.
I kind of led the creative team across the region, which was fun.
Mhm.
But again, it might sound kind of weird, but like it was easy. It was easy work. It was a lot of work, but it was easy because I guess like it kind of come naturally to me, the creativity and that kind of stuff, and having a team was fun, but it wasn't animation.
Right.
It wasn't something I was passionate about. I was passionate about creating kids and creating content for kids, and I really wanted to focus that. So after 2 years, I decided, you know what, it's time for me to get back and figure out this animation thing. And during
Mhm.
that time, Estonia, which is a country in Europe,
Mhm.
they had a thing called e-residency. What that basically means is that you can apply to become an e-resident of Estonia, which will allow you the ability to open businesses and all these things within Estonia. And the company will be an Estonian company, even though you won't be physically in the country.
Nice.
So, so technically, I'm an e-resident of Estonia, and I was like, well, okay. Uh, so I can do this. And technically, the company will be European. And I should also mention that during the time of Lab 206, I also, because we were like one of maybe three companies really at that point in time in the Caribbean, and because there's always this talk of diversification in the
Mhm.
industry. There's always this talk of it amongst governments, but it's never a thing. It's just a
Right.
thing that they like to say on a podium, speaking to people, but not actually investing into it. Um, so I realized at a point in time that I mean I can animate, I can draw, I'm a decent enough illustrator, but I also realized that within the Caribbean context, no one focuses on the business side of animation. No one focuses on
Mhm.
the business side of production. Everybody wants to be a creator,
Right.
but nobody understands distribution or licensing or production or just dealing with clients and face-to-face clients and all this on negotiations, so on so things. So I decided to focus squarely on those kinds of things. And at that point, during that time as well, too, I would have become the interim president of the Trinidad and Tobago Animators Network, which was supposed to be a kind of a lobbying body for animators and illustrators,
Mhm.
anybody within the field, to kind of come together and say, all right, cool. These are the practitioners within the region.
Mhm.
Um, this is how we can lobby together. This is how we can create content. This is how we can structure things. And I would have done that for a while and would have set it up. Um, and I have to say that right now there's a new president. She's a very smart girl, Jessica
Mhm.
Yauching. She's amazing.
Mhm.
She's the current president right now. But yeah, I mean, I would have done all these things. So I would have been always looking at trying to figure out a way. All right, cool. Like we keep saying that the animation industry exists and there's an industry, but technically we don't have an industry. We have a lot of freelancers who are
Yeah.
doing work,
Right.
but we don't have an industry. I mean, when you're talking about distribution, when you're talking about creation or co-creation or any kind of thing like that, we don't. It doesn't exist.
Mhm.
So I started to look at, okay, so we don't have money that comes in because unlike the US system or even the European system, so the US system for TV and film, uh, a lot of the TV channels will actually purchase or pre-buy content or invest into content themselves. So
Right.
like a NBC, a Cartoon Network, all right, cool. We see the show, we like it, we'll put money behind it, we'll help produce it,
Mhm.
we'll own some rights for it, and we'll distribute it, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist in the Caribbean. In the Caribbean, creators have to buy airtime on TV stations,
Mhm.
and so the creators themselves have to find advertisers and convince advertisers to fund their projects and then buy airtime on the TV stations. Why? Because the TV stations also are like buying like I don't know 10-year old episodes of Friends for like chump change, and it's like, well, I can buy this for and show this on my channel, why would I invest in? Why would I pay X amount of money to something that maybe I don't even watch? So in terms of the Caribbean, like that kind of thing doesn't exist. It still doesn't exist to some extent now. So I started to look at, all right, cool. Like, let's be honest, where is their money? The American system is very hard to crack because of all its unions, because of its TV stations. All right, cool. So no to America. Canada's pretty good. Canada has a good media fund. All right. I would still need to be a resident, or I need to find a partner to be able to set up a company across there. All right, let's put that on the waiting list for now. Let's look at Europe. All right, Estonia has this e-residency program. I can set up a company, be a European company, access EU funding. All right, let's try it out. So I went through the e-residency program, I got through, set up a company, and everything seemed to work, at least on paper, until this year, actually, because this would have been a year or two ago. This year, there's this event called Cartoon Forum, which is kind of like a European-based pitching event that happens in France. And I was like, all right, cool. Now you have to be a European entity or a European person to enter the festival. So I was like, you know what? Okay, if this is any opportunity to test my theory, this is a way to test it. So we had Howzat, which is our cricket animation, in the works, and we were like, all right, cool. Well, let's put together a package for it, submit it, and if we get through, then we know that our company is legit. It's a legit European company. And well, all right, cool. This becomes the avenue that we can test out and actually like start developing content across there. And yeah, we got through. Our pitch was accepted into the event. And yeah, we were supposed to go pitch at the event, but of course, you know, I keep hearing Cardi B's voice, coronavirus, happened, right? And we were kind of wondering, like, shit, like, okay, can we still leave? Can we still go to Europe? And it was a kind of a wait and see for a very long time. And then our borders closed because of coronavirus, and we couldn't leave the country. So we were like, fuck. But the event last minute, and I mean, knock on wood, I guess. I mean, it was good for us, but bad for France, I guess, because like France had an upsurge of coronavirus cases. So the event was like, all right, cool. Like, we're going virtual. So we were like, that sucks for you guys, but yeah.
We can still pitch.
We could still pitch, and we pitched, and it was good, and we got a lot of good feedback. And I mean, knock on wood, like I will say a big British TV called not BBC has reached out to us so far, and like we're waiting to we're kind of in talks with them right now to see if they're interested in buying the project or what we can do with the project. But I mean, even if they don't, like we're still working towards like releasing a comic book and doing it. Like we still have a planned rollout for next year, 2021. Even if this thing, because I mean, you know, animation takes a while. So even if we do, even if something does happen this year or next year, we're probably not going to see a developed show on television until 2023, 2024, realistically. So yeah, we're all about kind of keep that momentum going, but yeah.
Yeah, it sounds similar to when I was talking to Tayo from Nigeria of how, like, one, you have to figure out how, if you try to get your government involved, like get them to wrap their heads around it, and then because of it being animation, like even if you have like consumers, like trying to get them interested in animation, it's like building from the ground up in every way possible.
Always, and I guess that's why. So we would have started Farr Creative because we started this new company in France, and then because we started a new company in France, we kind of repositioned the company that we had in Trinidad. And like I'm kind of glad we would have gone through the process of what we did with Lab 206, because now we've kind of refocused and restructured how we're doing things with Farr Creative now, and just how we plan to move forward and just like focus on creating content. And like if I've learned nothing else, is that you can't have like one project and let that be the baby. Like you need to like be going to like Cartoon Forum and MIP and Kid Screen, and you need to be doing these things like year in, year out, year in, year out. Because you need to kind of like be like, from all I've noticed, like animation is still very much a club. And the people who are creating content are all in that club, and the only way to actually continually be in that club is to continuously show up.
Right.
Like you can't pitch something this year and then pitch something in the next 3 years, because 3 years from now, like it's like you're starting all over again.
Yeah.
Meeting new people and reintroducing yourself and all these sort of things. It's like, no, it's like you need to kind of be showing up every year. So like when I do pitch something new next year, or I repitch again next year, it's like, oh yeah, you were here last year. Yeah, I remember seeing something like that. Oh yeah. And you kind of like always constantly need to be showing up and always need to be in these spaces for people to finally recognize you, especially when you're outside of these systems.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Especially because then you're it's not as easy to kind of just show up. Like I can't just like be at Kids Screen because I'm like, I'm not based in Miami. I can't take like a flight from New York to Miami in like 2 hours, which is like, I don't know, $50 or less to get there. Like within US travel, it's like fairly cheap-ish.
Right.
Well, cheaper than coming from the Caribbean.
Right.
So
exactly.
yeah, like I am appreciative of all the virtual events that have happened this year, because I've been glad to show up at these events. It's just to keep momentum going is a big deal.
Yeah, I got to go to Annecy a little bit this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, all the virtualness is like, oh, okay, I could actually go to this thing without paying an exorbitant amount of money.
And that's what, like, I really and genuinely hope that they like it gets in their heads that okay, cool, like there is opportunity for us to reach a wider audience and maybe get a much more diverse set of stories and ideas and people involved, because we're not just like creating this event here for us,
right,
and only creating amongst ourselves. Like, I mean, there's a whole wider world out there. So
yeah. So can you go more into the unique stories that you're telling and want to tell?
Yeah. So like right now we're working on How's That? So I don't know if you know much about cricket, or even have you ever even watched a cricket match?
I just know what it is, and I know there's a bat, and that's about it. I can picture clips that I don't know what year in my life I've seen them, but I can picture a little bit of the pitch, but that's it.
So like, I mean, cricket is huge in like any former British colony. Any colony that was formerly British will like, cricket is huge. And so like in the Caribbean, South Africa, Australia, India, like cricket is like, I think the number 2 sport in the world, and it's only second to football.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, and I mean it's funny to me, and like a couple of co-producers I would have talked to in Europe, like Ireland and that kind of stuff. Like every time I talk about the pitch, they're like, it has never crossed our mind to make a cricket animation. And I can understand why, because the original intended format of the game is long form. So the format of the game is meant to be played over, like, so touch cricket is played anywhere between like 3 and 5 days over the length of 3 or 5 days. So Test cricket is long. But the Indians, they came up with a form of cricket called T20, which is basically it's a shorter form of the game. It's meant to be played quick. They kind of took a lot of inspiration from like American football, like pigskin football, and had like cheerleaders and that kind of stuff, and how like how they have the Super Bowl and the halftime show and that kind of thing. So they took a lot of elements from that and made T20 cricket, which is meant to be played in one day. It's like a big spectacular thing, and it's meant to be exciting. And so because the game has evolved into this T20 thing, I started to think, well, all right, cool. Like there's a new format of the game. It's much more exciting. It's slowed down. And then I kind of took elements from like anime has a lot of sports. I mean, yeah, Japanese anime has a lot of sports, and there's a lot of sports anime. And like I was really, really into haiku, which is the volleyball. And I was like, if they can make volleyball cool, I mean, we can make cricket cool, right?
Right.
So yeah, like all of that started going, and we started to play around with the idea about 2 years ago. We started to play around with the whole cricket idea, and we like started to really and truly like come up with what this world could look like and what our Caribbean perspective would be. And we started to take cues from so back in the 1970s, 1980s, when the West Indies was now, I guess we now got independence as an independent nation, and we were now breaking away from the British colony. And also during that time, there was a lot of migration from the Caribbean to the UK. This was this was called the Windrush. It was called the Windrush movement. So during that time, there was a lot of migrant Caribbean people in England, and then we were now becoming colonies, well, independent colonies of only Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, etc., etc. And cricket was like the West Indies coming together because there was the West Indies cricket team, and we actually defeated England in a cricket match during all that time. So it was like all these things that were happening that were very Caribbean, European centric, and we had just gotten independence, and then a couple of years later, we kind of defeated our colonial masters at their own game.
Yeah.
So it was all these things that happened at the same time, and we were like, yeah, that's it. So that story right there, that we need to figure out how to tell that story in a contemporary way. And it's because I mean it's the same story. It's not an unknown story. It's Goliath versus the giant. Sorry, it's David versus the Goliath. It's David versus the Goliath. It's the little man defeating the big bad person, and it's a typical kind of sports story, and at least at its core. But we wanted to use cricket, and we wanted to kind of tell it from our perspective, and we kind of wanted to use all these things on it. So we kind of came up with this magical little thing we call How's That? And so that's kind of one of the things that we want to tell right now, and it's like one of 3 projects we're kind of developing. I mean, this one is the big one that we're pitching right now, but we definitely want to pitch 2 more projects next year that kind of tell the similar story as well. And like, I think I get inspired very, very easily. Like, have you seen this new show, Over the Moon, on Netflix? The Glenn Keane. Have you seen it?
Yeah. Yep.
I enjoyed it, and I was like, I don't know why, but for the first time, I watched the movie and I was like, oh, it's very Disney-esque, and it's cute, and the songs are nice. But it was the first time that I watched the movie, and I was like, you know what? There should be a Caribbean-esque Disney musical animation.
Yeah.
And like
my number one thought while watching that movie was like, it's cool to see characters with broad noses and full lips. Even though they're like Chinese, I'm like, this
Yeah,
is cool. I like the
it was,
character design.
yeah, it was so weird to me because like I've seen Frozen and all that kind of stuff, and I mean to be honest, like some of the musical numbers kind of hit Frozen notes for me. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's aside the point. The fact that like I watched it and I was like, this is the first time I actually felt inspired to be like, I can finally contextualize how a another story can be told using the Disney mold
Right.
of grandiose musical theater, but a very nice, concise, well put together story. And yeah, like I started writing on another spec script for something else that I mean, who knows? That might be down the pipeline in the next year or two.
I feel
But
like
yeah,
with the
we have
story of like beating the colonizer at their own game, that could be like really inspirational for like people in the diaspora and like could kind of go far depending on
yeah,
like the
yeah,
marketing and
and I
stuff.
mean, yeah, we're doing that, and I mean, it's based on these two characters, Luke and Jack. They're best friends, or they were best friends back when they lived on the colony. Jack moved away. She's a girl, by the way. She
Mm-hmm.
moved away to live in the colony when they were younger, and she became like a cricket prodigy. And
Mm.
Luke, even though he was good at cricket, he was also good as well, but he didn't have as much opportunities.
Right.
So
Right.
later on, when they're finally get into like this college, this cricket academy, they're on opposite sides, even though they were best
Mm.
friends.
Right.
So eventually they form a team together and they go up against bigger teams, etc., etc. So I mean, it's and I wanted to create a diverse team as well because I don't there is no cricket team that I know that has both men and women. And
Mm-hmm.
as far as I can tell, like I mean, maybe I can be proven wrong, but cricket is one of those sports where I don't see any reason why you can't have a mixed team.
Mm-hmm.
There's no legitimate reason why you can't have a mixed team for a cricket match. Like, I mean, no offense to some cricket guys, but I've seen some slightly out of shape cricket guys, with a bat, a little pouch, and like batting, but they're scoring their runs, and it's like, well, I mean, if you're not in the best shape, like, and you're in an
Mm-hmm.
all-male side, like technically, like, and there are some female cricketers that are kick ass.
Mm-hmm.
Like the female, our West, I think our Trinidad and Tobago cricket, our women's team does better than the men's team, in my opinion. But they don't get half as much spotlight on them
Right. Right.
as the men as the guys do. So I was like, you know what? Screw that. I'm creating it's my world. I get to do whatever I want. I'm creating a full on mixed team with guys and girls, and the entire team is made up of like different people from the diaspora and different people
Mm-hmm.
from the Caribbean. So yeah, I mean, I cricket should be a sport that is celebrated by all, and I think it's something that we can do.
Yeah, I think it's similar to like the American, football slash soccer team, where the women are better, but don't get as much
Yeah.
sponsorships or advertising and stuff like that.
It's a crime because it's like I just don't get it because I mean they play just as hard. Sometimes they
Mm-hmm.
play even better,
Mm-hmm.
but yet they're nowhere near. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna sneak my girls in here because I mean I know there will be I know the people are gonna be like, oh well, cricket is the guy's game, and especially it's the Caribbean. I mean, we're not as progressive as we would like to believe we are
Right.
for the most part. Especially the older heads who actually control the money.
Right.
So it's like, you know what, I need to cater to those guys and have my traditional like lead star as being the guy and that kind of stuff. But I'm gonna make the girls like way better. Like they're 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 gonna be much cooler. They're gonna be much better. So
Cool. So,
yeah.
are there any? I'm not sure if this. Okay, so are there any animated Trinidadian or Caribbean films that we should see? Do those exist?
I mean, like full on feature films, no, not really.
Mm-hmm.
But there is like a animated feature by a guy. He's out of Martinique.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Bidard. Alian Bidard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I cannot remember the name of his film, but it's been circulating a bunch of festivals.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple of films as well too that are Caribbean based, I guess. But
Mm-hmm.
no, I think we really only have like one feature length animated film. We have a lot of shorts from different
Are there
Caribbean
any good
islands.
shorts you can recommend, or
Um, Not off the top of my head. Like
I can ask you
the
later, and I can put them in the comment in the
yeah,
description.
definitely. I could do that. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of cool little shorts that I can recommend. There was a recent one that again like it's also Martinique based, and
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's because like they're close to France. They're still a colony of France,
Mm-hmm.
so they're still kind of close to getting funding and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's he's another guy I would have met a couple of years ago, and he just released a film this year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too sure if it's a feature or if it's a short,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, he just released a film as well too, and I mean I like to claim him, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind, but like Wesley Lewis out of
Mm-hmm.
the Line,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, he would have created the Grand Mighty Piton.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah. He's actually St. Vincent. He's actually St. Vincent. He's actually
Mm-hmm.
from St. Vincent. So like, I mean, yeah, he's based in London and that kind of stuff, but he's a Caribbean boy. Like
Right, right.
I, so yeah. So I mean, I will claim them wherever they are. But yeah,
Um. So you've talked a lot about landscape of animation in like the Trinidad and kind of in the Caribbean. What do you think are the opportunities in the immediate future for Trinidadian and Caribbean companies? Like from you kind of forging your own path, what do you think is the future?
yeah. That's a tough question because I so every couple of years, like I think there's a general. I think from the ground up, there's a general interest in animation and a general interest in diversification and a general interest in content creation and a general interest in like wanting to create content,
Mm-hmm.
especially animated content and especially content for kids or even content that speaks to our culture because I do believe that a lot of a lot of culture, especially when it comes to kids, like history and our culture can be preserved through these kinds of mediums. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the things we would have learned growing up would have been from like things like Sesame Street, and
Yeah.
I will always remember there was this one segment of like a Trinidad steel band on Sesame Street, and it's like those things are kind of like are archived of our culture and can play from now till the end of time for the most part.
Right.
And it's kind of like these touchstones that preserve our piece of history. And like, but when you talk to older people, the older heads, or the people who are actually curating our culture, they have this this old idea of what culture preservation is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They don't see us telling our stories and remembering these things as part of preservation of culture. They see it as, oh, it's just this frivolous thing that my kid watches on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Like I recently shared this the show. I think she's St. Vincent. I'm probably getting this wrong, but yeah. St. Lucia or St. Vincent, but St. Vincent, I believe. But there's another UK show. I think it's called CC and Grand Grand.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and yeah, like it's about English girl and her St. Vincent grandmother, and they spend the day together, and it's like, but I mean, yeah, it's a childhood show, but I can only imagine how much kids in the diaspora who are based in England or the UK have never come to the Caribbean, but
Mm-hmm.
they can associate themselves with that because their grandparents would have been from a Caribbean or a diasporic heritage. And there's like little things that they would have talked about. It's like, yeah, my grandma used to talk about that as well too.
Yeah.
And it's like those little things that are keepsakes for ourselves that we don't actually realize that are like kind of like I don't know, like little memory boxes that we can keep for ourselves that preserve our
Right.
history. So
Mm-hmm.
so it's like I wish that if anything else we can take away from that understand that there is more to history and culture preservation that can be told through animation or through these stories. I mean, we were just talking about over the moon, and there's
Mm-hmm.
so much rich Chinese cultural heritage that is put into it. The moon cakes and the fact that the
Mm-hmm.
family gathers together to eat dinner and the kind of stories
Right.
that they share and tell and the iconography and everything. It's like, yeah, it might look like if somebody's just watching it, they'll be like, oh yeah, it's animation. But the kinds of things that they're telling on screen, like tells so that creatures create such a rich image that we take these things for granted.
Yeah.
How much of ourselves is reflected on these things. Um, so yeah, I mean, I like in doing research for another project, like I realized like Japan now has actually started to use their animation as a selling tool for tourism. So
Okay.
they've actually created these anime tours where you can actually visit locations of popular animated movies or TV shows.
Nice.
So
I feel
and
like
like
that's similar to like Game of Thrones, where you can go visit the
yeah
castles and stuff.
yeah. So it's like and like I guess it's countries and things like that that have seen the potential of just how far reaching their animation industry has reached and has seeped into these other things. And I kind of want to be able to reflect that in a Caribbean setting. And I think we're getting there. I think there's a groundswell of like really good animation and animation companies that are in the Caribbean right now that are trying to do these things. Of course, like we're going up against insurmountable odds because we're kind of reaching a pinnacle where it's like we've done everything we can at a governmental level or a thing level. And it's like,
Yeah.
all right, cool. Like we need the government assistance to do this and that kind of stuff. Or if not, then we need to figure out our own way, which is kind of why I set up a whole company in Europe because it's like, well, fuck it. I've hit my head so many times against Trinidad that I
Right.
need to find more room somewhere else to go. Um, and I'm just one example of what that is. There's
Mm-hmm.
another company that I think is doing amazing work out of Jamaica as well too. They're called Listen Me,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also run by an amazing person, Kenya Mattis. She's a brilliant, brilliant Jamaican, which I think you should actually talk to her. I mean, that's because she has a good
I,
story as well too.
it's been stored.
But yeah, like they're also doing amazing things across there as well too. So I think it's only a matter of time before we break through, and I think until one of us figures it out and
Yeah.
breaks through and makes something on a global impact, then the governmental bodies who are in our places are going to be like, oh, yeah, I do remember them talking to me about 5 years ago, 6 years ago about this. Maybe it's time I actually have a maybe it's actually time I try to listen to them and see
And
what
then they'll get up on their
they're doing.
podium and be like, "We always believed in them."
You know, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I think this year more than anything else has proven that the world is much smaller than people think it is. Like
Yeah.
the internet has flattened communication,
Mm-hmm.
and the truth is like you're only at this stage you're only limited by I guess your own ability to get out there and pull yourself up by the bootstraps and get shit done.
Yeah. You're
Like
only limited by your own work ethic and your brain and what you can think of.
yeah, yeah, there's like yeah, you might have other things going against you, but once you kind of just have a goal set in mind and you have every intention of trying to meet that goal, as long as you're have a good frame of mind, like you're capable of getting it because like there's so many opportunities out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so many ways to get this one thing done. And like I always remember like all these years like just being in animation, because I think like next year I would be involved in the animation industry, at least in the Caribbean, for almost a decade now. Um, like there's so many things that you would have learned that you kind of realize that, and especially like just doing research, like I've realized that there is no one way to do something. And
Right.
the reason why there isn't a lot of information with regards to like how to get your show, how to get your TV show on this network, and how to get this on this, or how to produce this. And I realized that because there isn't a lot of information on it, and the reason why there isn't a lot of information because like there is no one way to
Right.
do it. There is no one way to do it. Like a lot of times, like the reason why a lot of shows get made is because it just happens to be right place, right time, right opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this person just happens to have a pitch, be at this conference, or even just meet this person, and this person is like, yeah, I really love this. Let's see how to get this done. Like it's not like, all right, cool, well, follow this 10-step thing and this is how it's going to happen. It's like most of the time it's just a matter of being prepared and being ready for the opportunity wherever and whenever it comes.
Luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing I can say is just keep pushing. Like there's no shortage of opportunities if you can find it. And yeah, it's going to be frustrating, but I mean, if you keep at it, it's going to happen at some point. You just have to keep working at it.
Yeah. So can you give us a little foray into, okay, what is the climate of like consumers in Trinidad? Do people feel like animation is for kids? Is there any adult interest? Like, will you be having to retrain an entire country to like animation? What's that landscape?
It's one that I'm kind of still figuring out, to be honest with you, because like I think I always make this joke, like I think we have more animation. I think we have more Japanese anime festivals per capita than Japanese anime fans. But it's weird because I think we have like 4 festivals, because like one festival would have started and then a group of people don't like a group of other people, so they start their own festival and then they splinter off into their own thing. You know how these things can happen. But
human nature.
Yeah. But it's weird to me because like we have, from what seems to be a huge people that love Japanese anime and that kind of stuff, like the same I guess following hasn't really been capitalized on in migrating towards their own local content or even just local stories and that kind of thing. And to be honest with you, I wish I knew the answer as to why that was, or why wouldn't they be interested in seeing like local stories? And I mean, maybe it has something to do with like just like the spectacle of anime. Like it just looks pretty and it's just cool. It's just cool or whatever. But like if we could capitalize on that, then great. But yeah, for the most part, I think most people just see animation as a kids thing, as it's something that my kids watch and my kids do, and like the general consumer isn't that up to date or even just aware of like animation unto itself is like another. It could be filled with so many other genres of other things.
Right.
Like I remember,
it's just a medium. That's what people don't realize. It's not a genre. It's a medium.
Yeah, like I think like the first movie that opened my mind towards that was like Satoshi Kon, Perfect Blue. Yeah, I think I saw that movie when I was like in my teens or something like that, and I was just blown away by it because it was the first time that it covered my 2 favorite things, which was contemporary psychological thriller mixed with well done animation and somehow I've never seen those two things put together, and they work amazingly. And I was like, all right, cool. Like this is the first time I've ever seen something like this, and I was completely blown my mind because before that it was just like swords or mechs or like a lot of fighting, and so that was the first time like it kind of blew open my mind. And then from there I explored like French animation and just like how extensive they
in
are.
Europe it's more like a medium and a lot of adult stuff.
Yeah, so like it kind of blew my mind to see these things, and it kind of opened my eyes to like just like how open and animation could be anything you want it to be. So yeah, but I still think a lot of people just think it's just this kids thing, and because it's also like it's not as we also don't have a lot of local content being created. So we need to get past that first hurdle first before we can even consider like a consumer market for animation. But I say this to say also like I think YouTube and TikTok has done a lot of the work of changing our perception of what local content could be, because content creation has become like it's literally that's all you need for content creation. Like now it's like, and I think if there was a way, because people watch it, people share it, like there's a ton of viral like Caribbean like TikTokers and that kind of thing. But I don't think people are framing it in the context of content creation. I think they're just seeing it as, oh, it's funny memes and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think if we were able to recontextualize it as this is what content creation is, and this is what it could be, and this is us consuming local content, then it might click in people's minds like, oh, okay, so all right, so we can create our own stuff and do other things and create film and create animation and like more of the general public could actually be on board for watching more local content.
Yeah.
But it's also like sometimes you kind of need to draw the lines for some people for them to be able to make those connections.
Please follow.
But yeah, like I think if we're able to do that, then it's only a matter of time. But I think we're getting there. It's just it's gonna take a while, and there are like Caribbean wide organizations that are attempting to change that dynamic. Like I think Caribbean Export right now is doing like I mentioned to you like a Caribbean wide script writing something. They're focusing a lot on educating filmmakers in terms of the production and money side of the business, which is lacking. And I think like Jampro, which is in Jamaica, they're currently doing a kind of a system where they're trying to collect as much data as possible on Caribbean animation studios, because I mean they're finally jumping on board on understanding that like the Caribbean needs to act like a block as opposed to individual islands. Like it needs to be Caribbean animation and not Jamaican animation, Bayesian animation, Trinidad animation. And I mean I wrote an article about it like 6 years ago, but they're finally understanding that, because I would have looked at the European model for animation clusters and how they develop their animation is where like there'll be smaller studios that within France, sure, they're cool, they'll compete and create their own IP, etc., etc. But when it comes to the international market, it's France. It's not this studio, it's not this studio, it's not this studio. It's a cluster. It's the French animation cluster. And I think if the Caribbean was able to act like that and be the Caribbean animation cluster, then we would be a much stronger force to say, hey, we're here, we're the Caribbean animation cluster, as opposed
Right.
to, well, is Jamaica or Trinidad. Not to say that Jamaica or Trinidad doesn't have a global voice, but I think it's so
Right.
much stronger when we're all together.
Right. One beat, one drum.
Yeah.
So let's see. So you mentioned, okay, as far as programs being started by people or companies in Trinidad from the U.S. and other countries and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
you mentioned like you're in a writing program. Are there any other programming of people either in the Caribbean or from other countries that are trying to activate anything in animation?
No, I mean, I think the only thing that's happening right now would be, well, Jam Pro, which is the Jamaican export production company.
Okay.
Right now, they're actually doing they're actually doing a system where they're trying to create a Caribbean pipeline for animation studios.
Okay.
So I mean that I think that if it works, which I'm hoping, knock on wood, it does. It would ideally map out how many studios are in the Caribbean, what are their what is the capacity and the capabilities of each of these individual studios, and then see, all right, cool. Well, these are the things we need to build on. These are the things that we're strong in. These are the things that we're weak in. These are the things that we need to train up. Do we focus on outsource work? Or do we focus on like developing IP for other people, or do we look at maybe like developing Caribbean IP that we can sell? And then once we've pre-sold or created this Caribbean IP, then we can use that to develop our internal capacity for developing that kind of stuff and kind of create a kind of a self-sustaining system. But I mean, I say all of this to say like, oh well, this is not. I mean, it's nice pie in the sky ideas, but I mean, we're still a very long way from all of these things happening. But I mean, these things have been ongoing for years and years and years and years. And I mean, I could only hope that one of these things will catch, and we'd be able to be like, oh yeah, this is the thing that would have eventually take us to that point.
So as far as Farr Creative, like what kinds of stories like that are Trinidadian, like do you have in mind, just so we can kind of wrap our heads around like, oh, this, like, being in America, people might not know about Trinidadian culture. So like, what are some topics or something that you want to create animated
I mean,
products around?
the I think our biggest export has to be Carnival, at least from Trinidad. I mean, I like there. So
animated intricate costumes. Oh my gosh!
like I mean,
animation form.
not to completely spell out this idea. Like it's literally like it's now giving birth in my mind. But it's like why? But why not? Why not create like a Disney-esque uh fantasy musical around Trinidad Carnival? Like it's like Carnival is already this huge spectacle unto itself. Like why not include some Disney magic, Disney musical magic to it? So like that's literally the idea that's birthed from watching Over the Moon. But yeah, like Trinidad Carnival, like we again, like I think a lot of other carnivals around the world has taken, borrowed a lot of aspects of Trinidad Carnival. Like Miami Carnival is definitely Toronto Carnival is definitely a Trinidad Carnival. Nottingham in the UK is definitely a Trinidad-esque carnival. Like Jamaica has its own carnival as well too. Like, but they're all based to some extent off of Trinidad carnival, and they've kind of created their own versions of it. So yeah, I mean, definitely like carnival is something to be capitalized. Like carnival is something to be capitalized on for animation. Cricket is something to be capitalized on for
Steel,
animation.
steel pen.
Like our steel pan and our folklore. Like I think our folklore is definitely rich because, and I think it's. I mean, I'm biased, obviously, but I think it's richer than some other Caribbean islands, and I think simply because so Trinidad, unlike a lot of the other Caribbean islands, it has some unique things going for it. Even though we're a Caribbean island, technically our ecosystem is based off a continent because we're actually a split off of Venezuela. So like we have a lot of our environment, our flora and fauna are more based off a continent as opposed to an island.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting side note, but yeah, that's one thing. So it's like and not to mention too, like so. I mean, I think I'm a quintessential like Trinidadian to the extent that I like when I travel, I come across as very racially ambiguous. Right? And yeah, so that's because my dad is mixed. He's both Carib, which is like native Indian and African, and my mom is Spanish and Chinese.
Okay. You out here Tiger Woodsing it up.
So it's one of those things where but there are a lot of people like Kamala and your new vice president elect, like she's black and Indian, right? But to us that's just a Douglas. All right, that's just a Douglas mix. Like that's what Douglas mix is. And there's like, I mean, Douglas are no offense, a dime a dozen in Trinidad. Right. And that's the thing. Like, so because of our history, we've had Native Americans, which will be the Caribs and the Arawaks, who the indigenous people that lived here. We have Spanish, we have Portuguese, we have the Irish, we have Chinese, we have African, we have Indian. Like because our culture, because we've had so many immigrants and the people that have been brought to Trinidad or came to Trinidad, they've kind of made us into an interesting cultural melting pot that a lot of the other islands, and I think really only Jamaica has as rich as a cultural mix as we do.
Yeah.
But even still, like not as much as, and not as much as rich a cultural mix as we have. And because of that, like our history, our culture, our food is such a unique blend of all of these things that it's kind of hard to tell where something really begins and where something really ends, which is kind of where like it's kind of hard for me to describe like what I am because of like I'm just Trinidadian. Like don't think too hard about it. Like I'm Trinidadian. Like don't ask what I'm mixed with. Like I don't even know half the time. Like I have went from growing up to my grandmother was mixed. So my grandmother used to get, where you get this white boy from? To in primary school, I was the red boy. To when I was in my 20s, people used to call me Chinese boy. To now, I've gone back to being a red man. So like every stage of my life, I am apparently I have aligned myself to my different ethnic backgrounds.
Right.
But that's the thing. It's like and because we have such a mix of different cultures and different backgrounds. Like I think we have so many unique stories to tell that even if our stories may be similar to another island, to another person, our perspectives are so much different that even though we may be telling the same story or even have the same character in them, because we have these other cultures that have kind of fused themselves into our storytelling, it's not quite the same.
Right.
It might be similar. It might be like I'm thinking back to like the Princess and the Frog and oh gosh, the voodoo guy that they had. I can't remember his name right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Dr. Facilier?
Dr. Facilier, yes. Like there are characters like that because again it's Creole culture in the South and all that kind of thing, which would have been Caribbean-esque. But
Yeah.
even though we may tell like a similar story to that American South story, it's nowhere going to be from the same perspective, or it's not. It might hit similar notes, but it's nowhere going to play the same song.
Yeah. Yeah, and then
So,
with Japanese anime, they have a lot of food, and so just put in the Caribbean anime, just put that Trinidad food in there.
I mean, there's always this great debate of like which Caribbean island has the best food. I think it's Trinidad. I mean, let's be honest. Like, come on. I mean, it's perfect. I mean, you have the perfect blend of like African meaty food mixed with like Asian and curry spices, like chef's kiss. I mean, you can't.
Is
go
there
wrong.
like a competition? You know how there's like the Nigerian and Ghanaian where from Ghana jollof rice competition?
Yeah.
Like, is there a competition?
I don't know, but there is like Jamaican is like known for like rice and peas, and like they have like a rice and peas thing, but like in Trinidad it's like pilau and all these other things. That is a similar composition, but not the same, obviously. Like that's actually not a big idea. Like the great Caribbean cook-off. Who can create the best Caribbean dish? You know what?
Yeah.
I'm copywriting that right now. It's said here, all right? So, noted on this day, this time. This was our idea.
It's on the internet now. So, what do you like? This I feel like this might be my last question, but what do you hope that your part in the future of Black and Caribbean animation is? Like, what are you trying to do?
Well, I mean, it comes down to just like telling our stories. To be honest with you, like it's kind of hard to say, but I want to be able to create that impact that the guys who created Vox, like what they did for me, I want to do that for another generation.
Yeah.
Like I want to be able to create something and just create it for creating its sake, not thinking about the legacy that I'm leaving. Like I just want to have fun and do like I'm passionate about this. I took a break from it and I realized like no, this is definitely like where my my heart leads and this is what I want to do and this is where I want to create and I just need to figure out how to do it. And to be honest with you, like this year has proven to me that the idea that I had worked. And this is the first year that this is the first year that I've tried it and it's worked, which means that I can do it again next year and day after that and day after that and day after that. And I mean, it's only a matter of time until like it like I think we do break through because I do think like just getting out there, people are interested in our stories and people are interested in what we want to tell and it's just a matter of finding the right I guess the right vehicle to take us there.
Yeah.
And yeah, as I said before, it's just a matter of showing up and I don't know, I just it might sound kind of lofty to say like I want to leave a legacy that other people can follow, but it's much more than that because I want to create a system where this is what I've done to get my IP or my show or my stuff to screen.
Right.
I have done it from Trinidad. I have not migrated somewhere else and got the opportunity there. Like I did it from here, from home.
Right.
You can do it too. These are the things that I've done. You can either do it or like I just want to create opportunities that I can make it happen. Because it's like it's similar to like I think like any Black creator, like once you've open the door. Like you need to keep the door. You need to figure out how to keep that door open for everybody else behind you. And that's just like I always have it in the back of my mind that no matter what I do, I need to figure out how to keep that door open behind me.
Right.
Because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense if I'm the only one who achieves this dream and that's it. Right. It doesn't make sense to me because then the other people who are behind me who are also looking towards their own things and doing their thing, it feels like they're starting over.
Right.
And then it's like you're starting from zero. Like no, like if I reach wherever I have to reach, like you have to at least start at like 50 or 60. Having the information that I have, like here, take it. This is yours now. You can take it the rest of the way.
Right.
So I mean that's my big thing. Like I just don't want people behind me to have to figure it out to start over. Like everything that I do, I need to figure out how to make it sustainable, and not just sustainable for myself, but for anybody else to follow along as well.
Wonderful. So what's your website and where can people follow you on social media? You and your company.
Well, it's Farr Creative everywhere. FARR. Creative. And I guess it's you could find me at that guy Ren. THATGY guy Ren REN. I think that's my handle everywhere, like Instagram, Twitter. And that was it came out of the, like there was a point in time where everyone knew me as the animation guy. So like everywhere I would go, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, you're that guy, right?" Yeah. So yeah, that's how it kind of stuck, and I was just like, you know what, it's cool, it's fine.
Right. And then Farr Creative on social media too.
Yeah, it's Farr Creative on Facebook and Instagram and all. Well, we have a website, but we're currently building a new one.
Okay. So to everyone out there, well, thank you, René, for coming and telling us.
Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, this was fun.
And to everyone out there, I want you to like So I Know It's Real, comment and tell me how you feel, subscribe to Citadel, and sign up for post notifications to show your zeal. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
Cool. Bye.